Welcome to Lesson 9 of Module 3, Radical, Rational, and Absolute Value Equations. In Level 1, we'll look at radical equations. Radical equations contain terms with square roots, cubed roots, or other roots. So the goal is to isolate the radical before solving, and then to remove the radical and raise both sides to the power corresponding to the root, right? Inverse operations of that root. And we've seen that in previous lessons. So let's practice. We have the square root of the sum of x and 3 equals 5. In order to solve this, we'll square both sides. And remember, the square root of x plus 3 is the same thing as x plus 3 raised to the 1/2 power. So what we're doing here to solve is raising both sides to the reciprocal power. So the square root of the sum in x and 3 squared is x plus 3, and 5 squared is 25. And now we just use inverse operations, subtract 3 on both sides, and we get x equals 22. And that is our solution. Please pause this video and work on the Lesson 9 Level 1 problems in the workbook. In Level 2, we'll look at rational equations. Rational equations contain fractions with variables in the denominator. To solve, we want to eliminate the denominators by multiplying by the least common denominator. So let's solve this one together. X over x plus 1 plus 2 over x minus 1 equals 1. So we need to multiply by the LCD, the least common denominator. And the LCD is just, we're going to take the two denominators and multiply them together. So I'm just taking the denominator of both terms on the left side of the equal sign, x plus 1 and x minus 1, and multiplying them together. And you're going to multiply each term by the LCD. And when you do that, the denominators are going to cancel out, and you're going to be left with something that's way easier to solve. So we're left with x times x minus 1 plus 2 times x plus 1 equals x plus 1 times x minus 1. And now we have to simplify. Right, so using the distributive property, we get x squared minus x plus 2x plus 2 equals x squared minus 1. Just use the distributive property on both sides. So we'll continue solving by combining like terms on the left-hand side. So you're going to combine negative x and positive 2x. That's just going to become x. And we're going to start to use inverse operations to solve for x. So we're going to subtract x squared on both sides, and those x squareds are going to cancel out. And what you'll be left with is x plus 2 equals negative 1. And now we'll use inverse operations to subtract 2 on both sides, and we get x equals negative 3. And there's our solution. Please pause this video and work on the Lesson 9 Level 2 problems in the workbook. In Level 3, we'll look at absolute value equations. Absolute value equations involve terms like the absolute value of x, which represents the distance from 0, right? Remember that absolute value represents distance, and that's why it's always the positive value of whatever's inside those absolute value bars. So the equation absolute value of a equals b has two cases, a equals b or a equals negative b, right? A can be either positive or negative. The result of the absolute value will always be positive. So these two cases are essential to remember when solving absolute value equations. A equals b or a equals negative b. Just remember that rule. So if we have the absolute value of the difference of 2x and 3 equals 7, how are we going to solve that? keep the two cases in mind, right? We're going to write the two cases down first. That would always be my first step, is write down both cases so you know that there's actually going to be two equations that you have to solve here. So 2x minus 3 equals positive 7, or 2x minus 3 equals negative 7. Those are your two cases. Now you're going to solve each case for x. So let's take a look at the first one. 2x minus 3 equals 7. We'll use inverse operations and add 3 to both sides. Get 2x equals 10. Divide both sides by 2, and x equals 5. In the second case, we have 2x minus 3 equals negative 7. We'll subtract 3 on both sides. We get 2x equals negative 4. Divide both sides by 2, and we get x equals negative 2. So x equals 5 and x equals negative 2 are the two solutions to this absolute value equation, right? So in order to solve absolute value equations, you're removing the absolute value bars, and you're basically just setting the expression that was inside the bars equal to the positive and the negative value of what's on the other side of the equal sign, and then solving both cases for x. Please pause this video and work on the Lesson 9 Level 3 problems in the workbook. Once you're finished with the problems in the workbook, please stop this video and move on to the next one for Lesson 10.